Why do property developers drive Mercedes? I want to talk to you about and give you some insights and some secrets on really what the game is about and what games developers are playing and how it can mess you with your mind even. So first thing is that my first Mercedes that I bought on debt, right? I bought that on debt. So really, could I afford it? Not really. So I was 27 at the time. I'd done a whole stack of property deals and I'd bought my first Mercedes, and this was coming up to the GFC where credit was so cheap. So why pay cash for a car when you can borrow it, right? And I borrowed more than what the car was worth. It was a 5-year-old car. And here was one of the challenges, is that in the middle of the GFC, or a few years after that, 5 years later, the car was worth a lot less than half the price, and the debt was a lot more than what the car was worth. So, why do property developers drive Mercedes in the first place? One is it makes them look rich, it makes them look wealthy, it makes them look powerful, gives them a bit of posture. There's nothing better than parking in front of an auction, right, in your Mercedes or your BMW or your Porsche, right? So, and to be honest with you, the majority of Porsche, Mercedes owners and BMW owners, obviously I can't speak for all of them, but the majority of them, right, they're bought on debt. They're bought on debt. To clarify that, my second Mercedes I paid cash. The third Mercedes I paid cash. It was an AMG. And the current Mercedes we have at the moment is a GLE 350. It's a SUV, and we paid cash for that as well. So I learned that lesson quite earlier on, to be able to afford cars and buy them, pay them with cash, and be able to do that. But definitely, having the impression that you've got some cash behind you, some posture behind you, the ability to fulfill on projects, whether it's $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, is very important in this game. I know that you might think, it's a waste of time, but it did play a part, and I choose not to borrow for cars now. But at that point in time, it really gives the seller or the agent an impression that you have something behind you. Whether you do or not is another story. You do long settlements, you do capital raising, you get money partners on board. You do what you need to do to get the money through the door, right? So that's number one, is to give the seller the impression that you've got some substance behind you. The second reason oftentimes that developers drive Mercedes and BMWs, it actually gives you a feeling of confidence. It actually gives you a feeling of confidence, whether they talk about fake it till you make it, but definitely a feeling of confidence that you can do it. You feel great, you feel amazing, right? There's nothing better in jumping in a car that is very, very smooth. The leather seats are just hugging to your body, right? The German engineering, right, it's just so radically defined. You've got great sat-nav systems, great telephone systems, Bluetooth systems, things like that. And people check you out when you go through the car park. Not really. I actually get more compliments on my boat than I did on my Mercedes and my Porsche in the past. So, but it does give you a feeling of confidence, right? And if you're wanting to get in the game, you don't need to buy a brand new one. You can buy a second-hand one. It's just be wary of the repairs costs are up there. So so my point is, it definitely gives the developer a sense of confidence, a sense of, I've made it and I can do it. And you might think, well, why do you need that? If you're so confident, why do you need that? And you're right, you don't actually need that, but it helps. Every bit helps. Every bit helps. Every bit of reassurance helps, especially when you're juggling debt, when you're juggling investors, you're juggling timelines, holding costs, battles with council. It's an ongoing saga, those things. So, just a bit of luxury. So the third thing, definitely I can relate to in terms of why wealthy people and property developers in this instance drive luxury cars is a bit of a reward to themselves. Because oftentimes they'll go 2-3 years without a big feed. I'll give you an example. My site that I bought for 30 lots there, amalgamated with the neighbour, took 2 years to amalgamate, and it'll take 3 to 3.5 years to finalise that project. And once that project's done, the profit is very solid. We're talking, 7 figures here, which is really cool. But in the meantime, for that particular project, I haven't taken a cent in personal income. So if I didn't have my other income streams and rental properties, passive income, businesses, etc., I'd be starving like Marvin. So my point is that when developers make money, 200 grand, 500 grand, $1 million, $5 million plus, right? They definitely want to reward themselves. And sometimes what they do, rightfully or wrongfully, is they reward themselves a bit early. They go out and they deal with self-gratification there. The bank money is cheap, so they'll buy a car. Like I know a client of mine who bought a Mercedes-Benz $120,000. He had heaps of projects on, 10 staff, but no cash coming through the door. But for him, you know what, he was working so hard, he was starving, and he wanted some gratification, bought himself a nice AMG Mercedes. So a lot of developers, don't get fed for years, and when they do, it's very lumpy income, and when they pay it, they have to pay back their debts and their credit cards. I've been there before as well. There, I don't have any credit cards anymore, but you got to pay back your debts because you got to live somehow. And most developers who are ambitious, they're oftentimes living on debt off their lines of credit, credit cards, credit lines, to be able to survive and put their kids through schools, pay off their mortgages, rob Peter to pay Paul, right? So to finish up, those are the three reasons why developers drive Mercedes, rightfully or wrongfully. That's the candid truth there. And some developers who hear this video may not like what I have to say about it, but that's my take on it. You've got your point of view, I've got mine. And what I do want to share with you about it is, post GFC, I learned so many things of what not to do. I was in a situation where I had 20 blocks of land. We weren't meant to be cashing in $1 million worth of profit, but it was only on paper because the project took so long. And then the market crashed. A lot of those sales crashed. We were fortunate though, because we bought the land well, bought it under market value, was still able to make 200 grand in a market where the packers were losing billions of dollars. We still went ahead. We still were ahead of the game, still making profit at 200k. So my point in that is I've learned so many lessons, including not buying cars with debt. And I've packaged that up in a webinar in terms of how to take advantage of the current marketplace, and create what we call free blocks of land, right? Free blocks of land. So I've got a webinar that you can register and watch right now called Subdivision Secrets, and this is the bee's knees. It is essentially the last 10 years of my work, of what I learned through the GFC, what not to do, and how that turned that into big bucks. Reduce your debt, sell land, create opportunities that are right in front of your eyes. Create what are called free blocks of land and take advantage of what's right there in front of you that most of you can't even see, right? So click on the link below, check in and book into my webinar called Subdivision Secrets. You're really going to enjoy it, and hope you get some value out of it. We'll catch up with you later. Young, New and Advanced Property Strategies.